Welcome back to Greater Bridgewater. What an eventful first half. We are joined by candidate for Congress here in the 9th Congressional District, Vernon Harrison. Vernon, pleasure to have you on Greater Bridgewater in our candidate conversations. And we could probably talk all day. I'm sure you can agree.
My wife would certainly attest to that about me. So.
Well, why don't we keep this very informative conversation going? We're going to touch on a few more issues and then wrap up the show. So first off, let's jump right in and let me ask you, how do you feel the effect of the Tea Party on this year's election, and will it affect some of the results statewide and throughout the country?
I think whether you agree with or disagree with the Tea Party, I think one of the things that we have to recognize, as I've said it earlier, is that they have helped reduce the degree of apathy that we have that there's nothing that we can do. Remember that the original Tea Party, which, by the way, the guys who were at the Tea Party got dressed right around the corner from my house in Braintree. I was in high school at the time I saw them. No, they, and then they, and the original Tea Party was about fighting taxation without representation. And there's a lot of slanderous things that have been said about the Tea Party, and not everybody who attends is a perfect person. But I will tell you, the vast majority are. I am so impressed with the Tea Party and the way they run their meetings. Every meeting I've attended, both as a member and as a candidate, they encourage their members to get involved, get out there, and find a candidate and go to work for them. And I think I think we are also sending a message to both sides of the aisle, although as a Republican I'm probably a lot more happy than my Democrat friends, in that the people, the Tea Party is about people. And, to coin that phrase, we're mad and we're not going to take it anymore, and we can do something. We can have an effect, and we will have an effect.
The Scott Brown election especially was one of those effects. Now, do you consider yourself a Tea Party candidate?
Well, I consider myself a conservative Republican. I'm fiscally conservative, and quite frankly, I believe I'm socially conservative, although others have told me not quite. But I would be proud to say that I am supported by the Tea Party, or that I meet the standard of the Tea Party, which to me is about representing the constituents. And first and foremost.
That definitely has shown in a lot of the work you have done, and a lot of your video work, which we have seen on all the social media sites.
Particularly voteforvernon.com.
That's a good one, and we can mention that at the end also. How do you feel this year's election cycle differs from those of years past?
Well, it's interesting. I think right from the Scott Brown election, and isn't it exciting to be from Massachusetts? I've traveled the country for work, and often when I would travel as a conservative, I wouldn't bring up politics, I would just say I'm from Boston, But isn't it exciting that I think there's a revolution going on? Again, people know that they make a difference, When asked about term limits, I say, you know what, we don't need term limits. We have term limits. If everybody stayed informed, used forums like these, and stayed informed and voted, we wouldn't need term limits, because the leaders that are serving the constituents would be in power, and those that are self-serving would be sent home where they belong.
Very good. Now, how do you feel about your chances of beating the entrenched incumbent?
I think we're going to surprise Steve Lynch. Hopefully he'll be more surprised than Keith Lepore. Our internal polling shows that, and keep in mind it's internal polling, and but we've done what we try to believe is some unbiased dials, and when we talk to independents who, without name recognition, we're thrilled with the direction that they tell us they're going to vote, but we have to wait and see on election day. Asking somebody on the phone who they'll vote for or how they're feeling is a lot different than getting out of their seats and going out to vote. So,
very good. Now, what has become a very big issue in the country, especially starting with Arizona, is illegal immigration. Where do you stand on illegal immigration, and what are some of your thoughts on the issue?
Well, I'm not for illegal immigration. I don't think anybody is. But I think that that for all the talk that we have around this, the first thing we need to do is we need to control our borders, Myles. And not just a big fence on the Mexican border that doesn't allow anybody to come in, but we need to take a look at how people come here on visas. They come here on vacation visas, they come here on educational visas, they come here for work visas, and sadly, you know, they risk their lives running across the border looking for something better. But not everybody who's sneaking across the border is just looking for something better. We need to recognize that this is how illegal drugs are getting into the country, how they're coming in on boats at night. We need to control our borders. Once we have control over our borders and we have a path that allows people who come to the border an opportunity to work here when jobs are available, and we can know where they are and identify and fingerprint them and make sure that they're not becoming a hindrance to American citizens, particularly in these difficult times. Until we do that, any talk of amnesty reform is in my opinion, quite frankly, is foolish. It reminds me of the old Three Stooges episode. You're way too young.
Actually, you'd be surprised. Very big Three Stooges fan.
Well, remember when the boat was leaking? What would Curly do? He would go drill another hole in the boat to let the water out. And that's exactly what we did, 20 or 30 years ago when we did amnesty reform, is we allowed all the water in the boat. And you know what we ended up with? Twice the leak. We need to control the hole. We need to bail out here what doesn't belong here. And then when we control the border, then I think we can have realistic, compassionate amnesty reform for those who are here and serving America productively. We need to rid ourselves of those who are here for the sole purposes of criminal behavior. But none of that should take place. None of it should take place ahead of anybody who has come here legally and worked hard to be here. But we absolutely have to address it.
Very good. Now, why don't we talk about a question that will be on November 2nd's ballot. That is question 3. Which could repeal the state sales tax from 6.25% to 3%. Where do you stand on that question?
There is no doubt that both the state and the federal government have massive amounts of debt. And this is the leverage they like to talk about for increasing taxes. But this is not the time to increase your taxes. I don't think you're going to find people buying second homes. You know, why can't the public sector behave like the private sector? When times are difficult, we're asked to hold on, to spend less, to strap down. And here during this crisis that we're in, this deep recession, if not, as I said earlier, depression, government has grown. And so I think any tax increases right now on the backs of all of us who are struggling, myself included, with my 3 children at home and still have to go through college, is ridiculous. Now, am I opposed to all tax increases forever? No. Am I opposed to any tax increases when government's behaving so irresponsibly? Absolutely.
Very, very strong and solid point there.
Thank you.
Now, why don't we talk about reaching across the aisle and bipartisanship? How do you feel you'll be able to achieve both of these if elected in November down in Washington? You know,
it'd be difficult in a soundbite to let everybody know what a great problem solver I am, And, but I will tell you this, that historically I've been frustrated by votes down party lines and votes to keep my job. I think that the first thing that needs to be done is to lead and vote by example. I have this theory that if all the lights were off, when everybody voted and nobody could see who was voting for what, that a lot of issues would probably go the same way. Maybe not by the same majorities, but a lot of them wouldn't. And a lot of those guys that are casting their votes along party lines, I don't think it's in their heart. I really don't. And again, this is one of the reasons I'm running is my congressman votes 97.8% of the time with Nancy Pelosi. And I just, trust me, I am far more frustrated with her leadership, which Steve Lynch is on many of the leadership committees. Her leadership is part of the problem in dragging those guys along. So my answer would be to not just to reach across the aisle, but to lead by example. When we have issues, we need to uncumber the issue. Taking health care, for example, there are so many things that we can do that both sides agree on. Okay, now they're all lawyers, so tort reform's off the list, okay? But providing affordable health care to somebody who can't afford it, would you find me a Democrat or Republican who doesn't agree that that's something we can do? So we need people in Washington have the courage to say, I want to work on this. We all know this is a problem. Let's work on this. Let's make incremental changes. And the other thing I think that we need to do is I think a change could come from is in recognizing that everything that we do needs to be done on a time-limited basis. You know, I mean, one of the nice things about the Bush tax cuts, okay, and one of the ways that they were passed is they had an expiration date. Every tax should have an expiration date. And I think it's, although I'm against not continuing them at this time, there may be a time when things are well and families are prosperous and government could pay down its absurd debt, that we could have those, but not in the future that I can see. So I think behavior would be the first thing.
Very good. Now, we've just got a few quick moments to finish up our broadcast. Why don't you let people know how they can learn more about your campaign?
You bet. You can go to my website at voteforvernon.com. But for those of you who are not internet savvy or don't surf the net, you can also call us at 781-333-VOTE. That's 333-VOTE. That's 8683. And if I don't answer the phone, I will get back to you. I promise. I've done a good job at it. And if I get 1,000 calls, which I would expect out of your show, Myles, I will work diligently to get back to you.
Very good. Now, another episode of Greater Bridgewater and our candidate conversations has come to a close. I would personally like to thank Vernon Harrison, candidate for Congress here in the 9th Congressional District. Vernon, a pleasure.
My pleasure. Myles, you're the only guy that's gotten both candidates on.
Great.
So you are a rock star in the cable world.
Thank you. Would like to thank the tremendous crew and also everyone out in the technical room, Russ Hannigan and Kerrigan, all of our tremendous crew. Another episode has come and gone, and thank you for watching. I am your host, Myles Heger, and this is Greater Bridgewater.